What's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at Turbowing's Blue Butterfly. This is a 90mm micro quad constructed just about entirely out of carbon fiber. I mean, the frame is carbon, the prop guards are carbon, the camera mounts are carbon. Of course, there are some plastic and aluminum pieces as well, but the majority of the frame is made up of carbon. The hardware included in this kit is actually quite impressive, especially for a micro. We're talking about 1106 motors, 20 amp ESCs, as well as your all-in-one FPV setup and F3 flight controller.
The only unfortunate thing is it does not come assembled,
Which caught me off guard, but that's my fault as I should have read the specs more carefully. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this one performs. From the specs alone, it looks like it's off to a good start. But first, let's see what's all included. That's a lot of stuff. First up, an all-in-one FPV kit. (1106) SC speed motors rated at 7500 kV. These are just metal brackets that hold the frame together. One set of 2035 5-bladed props. A bunch of screws. The main plate of the frame. Various frame parts, adhesives, JST connectors, etc. A low ESR capacitor to clean up the noise. And here we have an F3 stack. The flight controller is a Pico BLX, and already attached is a 20 amp 4-in-1 BL Heli S ESC. And last of all are the carbon prop guards. So it took me a couple hours to get everything put together. I probably spent 10 to 15 minutes alone trying to figure out how the flight controller was supposed to fit in, and finally found out that it was supposed to be turned clockwise 45 degrees. The rest was pretty straightforward. There's just a lot of screws that you have to deal with. I measured some of the thicknesses on the different carbon fiber pieces, and prop guard section is 1mm thick. The camera mount and main plate are both 1.5mm thick. Overall, it's a cool design, but it's not without its flaws. The prop guards make it difficult to reach the USB port, and you have to remove the propellers to even gain access. Aside from a few small drawbacks, the frame is as tough as nails, which makes it a good quad to learn on. The heavy-duty prop guards do a great job protecting not only the props, but the entire quad. I've crashed many times before. 9 times out of 10 it lands right side up, and I continue flying without even having to get up. Isn't it just the worst when you crash and have to go retrieve it? I know I hate it. This quad uses some SZ Speed 1106 motors, which are rated at 7500 kV. I've never heard of them before, but they do look and feel like a great set of motors. With all the carbon being used, the weight will be a bit high, so in order to overcome this issue, the quad is using some decently sized motors, and hopefully this will be enough to make it a good performer. The motors itself are actually built very well. It feels very sturdy, there's no up and down play with the bell, and also the magnets feel very strong. The thing that separates this from all the other motors that I've used are the motor shaft. Look at how short this is. The good thing about a short shaft is sometimes you'll have props that have a very small center hole, so you really have to force it on, which I can't imagine is good for the motor. It really felt like the shaft was going to be pushed through the motor itself. Anyways, the shorter shaft just makes it easier to install the props. Moving right along, we have the flight controller and ESC stack, which is made up of a mini Pico BLX F3 along with a 20 amp 4-in-1 BL Heli S ESC. The boards come connected just like this, keeping things nice and tidy. This stack uses 6 pins to connect the 4 ESC signals as well as the power and ground to the Pico board. Let's pull it apart real quick. It's a good flight controller. It uses the MPU 6000, so this board is capable of running at 8K gyro rate. I don't know if it's necessary to have a board full of 20 amp ESCs, especially when comparable micros out there run perfectly fine with just 10 amps. But then again, it's always a good idea for it to be higher rather than less. You won't mess anything up if your ESCs have a higher than necessary amperage, but if it's too low, you do run the risk of frying them. FPV is through an all-in-one VTX and camera kit. It's a 40-channel VTX that is switchable between 25 and 200 milliwatts, and the camera is a 700 TVL with a CMOS sensor. It functions just like your typical all-in-one. To change the channels, you're going to want to push the button once. To change the bands, press and hold the button for around 3 seconds. Once it starts to blink, press the button again to cycle through. Same thing for the power schemes. You'll hold it for around 5 to 6 seconds and you'll either see 1 to 3 lines blinking or a 0. The lines signify a power scheme from 25 up to 200 milliwatts, with 1 line for 25 and 3 for 200. Here's a quick sample of what you can expect out of the all-in-one FPV kit. Great color and brightness, good detail too. Pretty much what you would expect out of an AIO kit, aside from the jello, which is a result from the way that it's mounted, which is just using double-sided tape. I was very happy with the way the picture looked. So yeah, a big reason as to why there was jello has to do with the way that it's mounted. I wish they would have had an actual camera mount so that it was actually secure instead of just using some tape. Some hot glue would work fine as long as you just use it on the camera. Putting the glue on the VTX, well, it might melt. Another reason might have to do with the tune. If you're noticing a lot of vibration, try reducing your PIDs. All the components on this micro are very well protected, as you can see, and I've crashed quite a bit with this quad. No broken anything, not even a bent prop. Once the Blue Butterfly is assembled, well, it's more like the carbon tank. I still don't get why they called it the Blue Butterfly. It's a rock solid micro. I've crashed this thing countless times and it's holding up perfectly fine. But with all carbon everything, it weighs almost 80 grams, and that's without props, which is pretty heavy for a 90mm micro. And well, I'll talk about the performance in my flight footage, which by the way is now. Alright, let's start off with some line of sight footage. So, I thought this quad was going to be quite the performer, with it having 1106 motors and 20 amp ESCs. Unfortunately, that's not the case. However, I did eventually get it to perform at a more than acceptable level, which I'll get into in a little bit. But first things first, vertical power on this thing is just lacking. Horizontal power was actually a lot better, and nothing to be ashamed of. I just felt like punch-outs felt underpowered, and at the end of flips or rolls, you would have to cautiously throttle up, otherwise you would hit the ground. I think the heavy weight coupled with just 2035 props are the main reason behind the feeling of it being underpowered. These motors and ESCs are by no means underpowered. They actually perform fairly well. I tried them on another frame using bigger props and well, wow, just a ton of power. Alright, so I didn't get any footage of this, but when I took the carbon fiber prop guards off, that's when this quad came alive. The removal of the 4 prop guards, which is about 12 grams, I think increased the performance tenfold. With the prop guards removed, it feels like a different machine, but because of this, I think it makes for the perfect beginner quad. So think about it like this. While you're starting to learn how to fly, you can have the prop guards on with a lower power level, and when you're ready, you can take them off and access an increase in power. It's the perfect starter quad. Anyways, I think I've talked enough. Enjoy the rest of these flights. Thanks for watching. See ya.